vanished without a trace.
The investigation is now being formally classified as one of suspected murder.
But with new leads, can this man help reveal the truth? Hello and welcome to Crimewatch. We're live and surrounded by dozens of senior detectives from all across Britain, hoping that your call is going to help solve a major crime tonight. Like the team from North Yorkshire here with Claudia Lawrence's father, as they ask for your help in their year-long search for answers. Also on the programme, can you name the murdered woman whose remains were unearthed in Manchester last month?
Right here there was a 12-foot high fence, a brick wall, and the body was found in between the gap. There was a scattering of bones, the skull was exposed.
Now, Rav, who's in your lineup?
We've got blackmail, burglary and kidnap, just some of the misdemeanours this lot are wanted for. But we also need you to catch the hitman who did this. Unbelievable, the victim was lucky to survive. Matthew.
This man mutilated, then scattered Geoffrey Howe's body parts across the country.
Are you responsible for the killing and the dismembering of Geoffrey Howe?
No comment.
Well, I've got the inside story of how detectives proved Stephen Marshall, a gangster's henchman, was the so-called jigsaw man murderer.
But first tonight, the disappearance of Claudia Lawrence. It's hard to believe it's nearly a year since the 35-year-old chef from York vanished without a trace. As we'll hear from Claudia's father, it's been 12 months of anguish and pain for her family. We still don't know if Claudia is alive and well or has come to harm, as detectives suspect. But we hope that'll all change in just a few minutes when we'll reveal fresh leads in the case. First, take a look at our reconstruction of Claudia's last known movements.
Good afternoon. My name's Peter Lawrence. I'm very concerned about my daughter.
Fine. And what's your daughter's name?
Claudia.
Concern grows for a 35-year-old woman who's been missing for a week.
Police here in York are saying that the disappearance of Claudia Lawrence is completely and utterly out of character. She was last seen.
The investigation is now being formally classified as one of suspected murder.
We're distraught and we need your help. It's just been a living nightmare not knowing what's happening.
Despite the headlines and huge media interest, we still don't know why Claudia Lawrence disappeared. For someone so close to her family, her disappearance just doesn't make sense.
You're in shock, you don't believe it. You don't believe it's happening, it happens to somebody else.
There are terrible moments. I can sit at home on my own and I can just burst out crying.
Detectives have pieced together Claudia's last known movements.
Right, I'm off. See you tomorrow.
In the hope they will give some clue as to what happened to her. Let's start with Wednesday, March the 18th, the last day Claudia was seen. She just finished her regular early shift at York University. CCTV has her leaving the building at 2:30.
In the weeks before Claudia disappeared, she started to walk to and from work. The route to her house was about 2 miles, and that Wednesday was no different. She set off home on foot.
The next time Claudia's on the radar is about 8 p.m. when she texted a friend. Then, just before 8:30, her mum called.
Hiya. Yeah, good, thanks. I'm watching it now.
Now, we can't be sure, but we think she was at home when she took that call. She sounded cheerful and relaxed.
All right, then. Yeah, I will do. Bye.
But that phone call was the last time we know for sure that Claudia was alive and well. The following morning, she failed to turn up for work. At 10 o'clock, her manager called her mobile. but there was no answer. Then at 12:08, her phone powered down. It either ran out of battery or someone switched it off. Claudia was supposed to meet friends that evening, but didn't turn up. When she still didn't answer her phone on Friday morning, they got worried.
I just find it hard to accept that people just vanish into thin air, and that's what I can't get my head around. There must be people out there that have seen something suspicious or who know something that's happened.
So why didn't Claudia turn up to work that Thursday morning? There's no sign of a struggle here in her house. Her passport and clothes are still here. In fact, the only things missing are a blue rucksack, a mobile phone, and probably a set of chef's whites. The three things she'd normally take to work with her, which suggests she set off for the university as normal, but never arrived. There were two important sightings in the early hours of the morning that week. Both involved a couple, and both were on the route Claudia took to work. The first was on Wednesday, the 18th of March. The second was of a man and a woman arguing near the university on the Thursday morning. Was it the same couple? We just don't know. Nor can we be sure the woman was Claudia. But if it was, who was the man she was with? Police believe something terrible happened to Claudia Lawrence, perhaps at the hands of someone that she knew. Whilst much is still unclear, what is certain is that there are people out there with answers. They need to share them.
Somebody out there does know something, and at the moment they're not saying. It's almost unbearable not knowing.
You try and wonder what's happened to her. You don't want it to be anything unpleasant, so then you try and block that out of your mind. I try not to think about it too much. And that helps you cope, I guess.
And there's just something missing. There's a very important thing missing, and it's Claudia.
Well, joining me now is Peter Lawrence, Claudia's father, and Detective Superintendent Ray Galloway. Welcome to you both. Peter, first of all to you, an unbelievably difficult year, but particularly difficult this week, as it's Claudia's birthday this week.
It's Claudia's 36th birthday on Saturday, and of course for the past 35 birthdays she's been with us, so yes, it's a very difficult time.
How are you managing and the rest of the family to cope day to day?
I think basically because of the massive support of the rest of the family, of friends, the church, and support from the whole of the public.
You've got a big day planned for tomorrow. Tell me what you and her friends and family plan.
Yes, very briefly, it's the idea of Claudia's friends, Susie and Jen, to have a day just to make people aware of the fact that this is still going on, that Claudia's still missing, and that it is her birthday. So we've been given the square in the centre of York. We've got local media there. The police are going to be there. We're letting off loads of balloons with tags on, so that the Claudia image and telephone numbers for the police and Crime Stoppers are there. So hopefully there might be about 400 balloons going up. The Lord Mayor's coming down. We've got music. Claudia's favourite group that she regularly saw at the Nag's Head, a couple of doors away from her house, have agreed to come down and do 2 slots for nothing. So, you know, it's not a celebration, but it's an awareness day of the fact that, you know, this investigation is still going on. We're still trying to find Claudia.
It certainly is, Peter. We wish you all the very best with that. Now, Ray, you've got what you hope will be some crucial new evidence to share with us tonight. Before we take a look at that, just tell me what's happened in your investigation since we spoke to you last June.
Well, the last 11 months primarily has been the team putting together what is really a comprehensive, but it's definitely an incomplete profile of Claudia and her movements and the people that she knows. We've been as far as Cyprus and recently to Southern Ireland and traced people that she either was a friend of or a partner of. But frustratingly, we're also finding, even recently, even only last week, people who were on Claudia's route to work in Melrose Gate, and we're waiting for the police to come to them. And when we knocked on the door, they expressed that. But my appeal tonight is, please, if you were in that area on the 19th of March between 5 and 6 a.m, please come forward.
Right, now you have CCTV that you're going to take us through. Footage of Claudia leaving work. We'll see it. Just tell us the details, the bits that are important.
Well, as you can see, Claudia leaves work at Goodrick College. She walks across the quadrangle, and this is highly important to us in that it actually shows people what Claudia looked like as she was walking up and down Melrose Gate. That's her just posting a letter on Melrose Gate Post Office. People drive up and down and walk up and down a very busy thoroughfare. Do you recognise Claudia from them pictures?
You've also got pictures of a sort of pale-coloured car. It's really important. You want to trace this car.
It is. That vehicle actually pulls up on the 18th and the 19th of March, and then again on the 25th of March. It pulls up just ahead of the Melrose Gate Post Office, stops for 2 or 3 minutes, and then pulls away again and heads down Melrose Gate in exactly the position and the location where Claudia would be walking to work. We don't know what the vehicle is. We think it's potentially a Mercedes C-Class. We don't know why it's pulling up there. It might be dropping someone off from or to work. Who is it and why are they there?
Could be a perfectly reasonable explanation, but you need the explanation.
I need to know.
Also CCTV footage of a man that you must trace.
Yes. This man in a hoodie is walking past the post office just before 5 o'clock on the 18th of March. Now, the relevance of this is that between 5 and 10 past on Melrose Gate Bridge, which is about 200 yards away in that direction of travel, a witness sees 2 people, a man and a woman, in an interaction. There's actually no conversation taking place, but he's the man with the left-handed smoker, and he's in a hoodie. Now, that man in that CCTV will be at that venue at that time.
Okay, Ray, for now, thank you very much, and a special thank you to you, Peter, and we wish you all the best.
Thanks very much indeed.
Please, if you've got any information, no matter how minor, it might be the piece of information that will help. Do the right thing. Pick up the phone now, 0500 600 600. If you need to take another look at that new CCTV or you want to watch the reconstruction again to remind you of all the details, it is, of course, on our website, bbc.co.uk/Crimewatch. Now it's over to Rab with the first of this month's Most Wanted.
And leading the way tonight is Rashino Arapaj, and he's wanted in relation to a shooting in the Crossland Moor area of Huddersfield last September. Shots were fired at a Vauxhall Corsa, but amazingly, the people in the car managed to escape unharmed. Arapaj also goes by the name Gino and has links to the Albanian community. Next up here is Adnan Mohammed, and police want to speak to him about the rape of an 18-year-old back in April 2003. The teenager was walking to a friend's when she was grabbed, dragged into a house and then attacked. Mohammed used to live in Rochdale where the assault happened and may still be there. My number 3 here is this nasty piece of work, James Doe. He's wanted for a burglary in Droitwich, Worcestershire in 2001. Joe was charged but failed to turn up at court and has been on the run ever since. It's a pretty old photo here, so he may well have aged a bit. There's a £5 reward for his arrest, but if you see him, keep away because he's violent and should not be approached. Number 4 is Raja Abbas, and he's wanted for blackmail, theft and kidnap. The victim was bundled into a car, beaten and then kept against his will whilst demands were made to his family for cash. Abbas has links to the Asian communities in South Wales and the West Midlands. So, do you know where any of this lot are hiding tonight? Pick up the phone now if you do, 0500 600 600, or you can text 63399. Just type crime, space, and then your message. It's really important to leave that space or your message won't get through. And you can also check these mugshots out online, bbc.co.uk/Crimewatch. And remember, all of our most wanted stay on the website until they're caught.
Still to come, the shopkeeper kidnapped and stabbed in the stomach, all for just a few £100s.
Look, wait. There's money in my pocket here. Take that. Take on, man. Then I realised he'd been stabbed.
Can you name the sexual predator who attacked a schoolgirl in broad daylight?
So how dare he touch my daughter?
Plus, jailed for life this month, how detectives prove this man murdered and mutilated Geoffrey Howe before scattering his body parts across the country.
So all of that is still to come. Now, just 4 weeks ago, workmen levelling a car park in central Manchester unearthed human remains. At first, it didn't actually seem that suspicious because part of the area was once used as a huge pauper's grave. But soon it became clear detectives had a murder inquiry on their hands. Rav joined the team as the search began to name the victim and find her killer.
A murder mystery has been unfolding in Manchester today.
At first, police believe the remains might have come from an ancient burial site.
Detectives have been trying to piece together clues.
In January, workmen clearing this site unearthed human bones. How the remains came to be dumped here is a mystery. But a week after the find, detectives are on the hunt for a killer. So Jeff, what's this area here then?
This area was historically known as Angel Meadows. It's obviously a construction site now, but it was one of Manchester's worst slums in the mid-19th century. We do know in this area as well, surrounding area, there was a pauper's mass grave really with 40,000 people buried there.
So tell us what's happened then that's led you to become involved.
Well, we got a call about 3:30 p.m. on the 25th of January from workmen clearing the site, and they've uncovered what they believe to be human bones and a skull. Right here, there was a 12-foot high fence, a brick wall, and the body was found in between the gap. There was a scattering of bones, the skull was exposed, clearly exposed, and what we found also were items of clothing and carpet intermixed with some of the bones. We called in the forensic anthropologist, and they were able to help us with obviously interpreting what the scene might have looked like before the digger intervened.
But still, at this stage, you're still not suspicious, are you?
No, we knew of the presence of paupers' graves in the area, so we weren't too concerned, but nevertheless, we did send the bones off for examination by a forensic pathologist.
Along with the forensic anthropologist, we can determine a number of basic features about the skeleton, in that there was a Caucasian female between 18 and 30 years old, probably between 5'1" and 5'7" tall. There were also a number of worrying features on the skeleton. We identified a fracture to the right side of the jaw. There was also a small fracture in one of the cervical vertebrae, and these are basically the bones of the neck. There was also a fracture to the nasal bone as well. And all of these injuries, particularly when taken together, are suspicious that she'd been subjected to a blunt force physical assault just prior to her death. And therefore, this case is suspicious of a homicide taking place.
So how do you go about running a major investigation like this with so little to go on?
We'll review what the scene tells us, but in an inquiry like this, there is no CCTV. There are no witnesses that we've traced so far. There's no house-to-house, so identifying the victim is the key to unlocking the mystery.
So what will your individual officers and staff be doing then?
Well, one of the first ports of call is looking at historical reports of missing persons, trying to match anybody that might fit. We've also got somebody looking at the history of that site and trying to give some kind of timeline to the chronology of the developments, try and move us forward, because again, if we can identify who this woman is, we can then start to look at family, friends, associates, and really start to piece together what may have happened.
You've also got some crucial clues which could help identify who this woman was.
We have, Ralph. We've got a pinafore dress with a very distinctive pattern on. Madame and Monsieur in writing underneath these figures. I'm hopeful that somebody will come forward and recognise that, either connected to our victim in terms of what she might wore at the time and if they can remember that, but certainly anybody that's manufactured that or sold garments like that. We've got carpet, both orange carpet, which seems to be a longer piece, and we've got what appear to be offcuts of blue carpet, again associated with the remains, the bones. And likewise, we've got blue bra, blue jumper, and again, bone remains within those garments, so we're sure that they're all connected with this particular victim. In addition, the things we've covered from the scene, we'll be linking in with forensic science and looking at what they can offer us too.
Well, in this particular case, we've got a number of items recovered. We've got some fragments of bone, and these are going to be subjected to DNA testing. One of the key items we're examining at present is what looks to be a significant part of a pinafore dress. What we're trying to establish is whether there are still any DNA traces from the person that owned the dress, probably the victim. We'd also be looking likewise for any DNA traces such as from blood, semen or saliva that might possibly have come from an offender.
But this isn't just about catching the killer for you, is it? You also want some sort of closure for this woman's family.
We are, yes. This is somebody's mother, somebody's daughter. Where she's been recovered, she's been laying there for probably years and years, and it's obviously we need to give her a fitting burial at some stage and try and give her some peace in what must have been an awful end.
We don't know who this young woman is or when she was murdered, but somewhere out there's a family who have lost a loved one. And with your help, her killer can be brought to justice.
Well, I'm joined now by Detective Chief Inspector Jeff McMahon, who, as we saw, is heading up the investigation. It's very early days for you and your team, Jeff, but you do have some leads that are the beginning of the investigation.
We do. We know she's female. She's Caucasian, possibly mixed race, 5'1" to 5'7". The age range 18, we think, up to 35. And again, the injury is consistent with somebody who's met a violent death.
Okay. And how long ago do you think that she met this violent death?
Difficult one. We're working on that to get the time frame down, but at the moment we're looking at somewhere from 1956 right up to 2009, so a long time to review.
As we saw when you were talking to Rav there are a few really important and some of them pretty distinctive things that might help you on the way. Let's start with this pinafore.
Yeah, pinafore dress. It's got a very distinctive pattern of this man and woman and the words Madame and Monsieur written across the garment. Again, we're looking at who manufactured that, or does anybody know who wore that garment, obviously, and if they could call in.
We saw that there was a blue carpet that could have been used to wrap this woman up. Also orange, more distinctive probably.
It is very much so, and we believe she may have been wrapped in the carpet, but again, we're not sure, so anything that triggers a memory for that as well.
You find a shoe?
Yeah, left foot, black high heel shoe, and again, we think that belonged to the victim.
Now, there was a funny sort of bit of, I don't know, was it polythene or plastic with the name Guinness on it? Tell us about that.
It's a piece of plastic, and it would appear that comes from a Guinness advertising campaign in 65, 66, and again, all those things in combination is that going to lead somebody to identify our victim.
Is it your reckoning that the person who murdered this woman had local knowledge?
It is, Kirsty. This site where the body was deposited is very much city centre site, but it is secluded, so I think local knowledge is the key.
Right, somebody knew that it would be a good place to hide a body. Jeff, for now, thank you very much. Please, if you've got any information that you think could help identify this poor woman, then do call us now. You know the numbers, 0500 600 600, or you could call the independent charity Crime Stoppers. You do that anonymously, that's fine. I'll give you their number too. Their number is 0800 555 111. If you want to see the film again, bbc.co.uk/crimewatch. For now though, here's Rav with this month's CCTV.
And some shocking scenes tonight as an assassination attempt is caught on camera. We're in Kendal in Cumbria back in September. Keep a close eye on this bloke shopping for diamond rings at this jeweller's. He's after a bit of bling, but has no intention of paying for it. He asks the sales assistant to show him some rings from the window display. Then, while she's distracted, he swaps one for a fake, pocketing the real one worth nearly 14 grand. Missed it? Let's have an action replay. Blink and you'd miss it. A bit like this camera then. It's behind you. Time this bloke got his rocks off some other way. Name, please. Tempers are boiling over at London Bridge Station last June, and if I were you, I'd keep out the way of this smartly dressed man. He looks a little like MasterChef's Greg Wallace, but this bloke's too hot-headed to handle the kitchen. As he walks through the station with a female friend, he takes a disliking to two young men walking by. At first, he says nothing, but with his friend safely out of the way, he doubles back, comes up from behind and smacks one of them hard in the face before walking away with a grin. It's mindless, unprovoked violence, but thanks to this, I think it's us that will have the last laugh. Tell us who he is. We're in Longsight, Manchester in August 2 years ago. Recognise this man? Take a good look, because he's wanted for raping an 18-year-old girl. Here he is walking past Longsight Market. He spots his victim off camera and pounces. It's only when this cyclist bravely intervenes that the girl is finally safe, while her attacker does a runner. He's an opportunistic, dangerous predator and must be found before he strikes again. You might not be able to see his face, but do you recognise his jumper? Police have a full DNA profile, so can easily eliminate innocent people. It's off to work in Longford, Warwickshire back in October. But what this bloke doesn't know is that today, he's someone else's business. Waiting outside is a paid assassin who's determined to finish the job. As he gets into his car, the gunman pulls up and calmly approaches. The victim's got nowhere to run as he smashes through the window and opens fire. The victim was shot 3 times in the legs and is lucky to be alive. He's had to flee his home, terrified for his life. This was a professional, organised hit in broad daylight. Time this gun for hire got his P45, helped make the streets safer and name him tonight before his next target ends up dead. We need his name tonight, so please pick up the phone now, 0500 600 600, or you can text us on 63399. Just type crime space and then your message. And if you need a second look, go online, bbc.co.uk/Crimewatch.
Now this is Ravi Verdi, a father of 3 who came this close to dying last September. You see, Ravi was kidnapped, robbed and stabbed, all for just a handful of cash.
I didn't feel any pain until I actually saw my wounds.
It really is your worst nightmare.
I thought that's it, it's over, you know. I'm gonna die and I'm gonna die this way.
It's going to be a big season this season.
It should be, man.
No, it will be.
Will be. Champions League?
No, UEFA Cup. Harry Redknapp's a good manager, but he ain't that good.
I see what you mean.
You ready?
Yeah.
Run a family business. We wholesale, retail, wines, beers and spirits around London.
Well, I'll put some money on it for top scorer.
It's just gone past 10 o'clock and set the alarm and I've locked up the shop.
Yeah? Right, I'll see you later.
Yeah? Okay, yeah?
And just started my way to walk around to get into my van to go home. I've looked up and I see 3 men. They're wearing high visibility jackets, and I thought to myself, you know, just guys who are working night shift. Get out my keys, open up the van door, and the next thing you know, it's so quick, so fast, the way everything was happening, just pure aggression. Then they point this knife in my face. I don't know what's happening here. We take a right, and then a left, and then a right. At this point, they've just stopped in the middle of the road, and I'm thinking, okay, this is all going to be over now, but it's not.
Where's the money, bro? What do you mean? There's no money. What are you talking about? Look, no, wait. There's money in my pocket. Take that.
And I tried to get it out, and for some reason, I couldn't.
Come on, man.
Then I realised I'd been stabbed. Blood just pouring. It's not dripping, it's pouring straight into my hand.
What's that?
So he's pulled out the money, and it's full of blood now. And I said, look, please just take me to a hospital.
I need to go to a hospital.
You taking me for a joke? What's that joke, man?
They didn't care. They were heartless.
Hey, I'll meet you man at back.
At this point, one of the 3 men leaves the van.
He would have left Hatfield Road at about 10:20. Where did he go? Ravi needed urgent medical attention and had given the men all the money he had, but still they wouldn't let him go. Somehow he had to get help.
Drive up to a main road, and by chance there's 2 guys that walk across.
Help! Hey, what are you doing, man?
They haven't even looked up, they've just walked straight on. Next thing you know, they start punching me.
Are you crazy, bro? Man, are you crazy, bro? What are you doing, man? Thing, man.
All right, look,
hey.
Feel that?
Yeah. I'll cut out your eye, you know. All right.
It was just pure sort of fear, and I'm like thinking, if they do kill you, you're never going to see your family again. There's nothing I can do to stop this.
With Ravi in the footwell fighting to stay conscious, they drove west along the Uxbridge Road in Hanwell towards Southall. You can just make out the high visibility jacket in the front of the van.
All I started doing is thinking, you know, what can I do to make this end?
Desperate to get the van to stop, Ravi came up with one last ploy. He played dead.
Just slowly started extending out my leg further and further until my shoe was caught under the clutch pedal.
What are you doing, man? On the clutch, brother. I can't move the car. I can't move the car, brother.
You know, he's pushing, but he can't change it.
Unable to move Ravi's leg, his attackers could only do one thing.
Get out of the car, man! Shut the door!
And they left the keys in the ignition, and they've gone.
The men who stabbed Ravi would have gone home with blood on them. The people who are sheltering the gang need to think this could have been murder.
I feel fortunate that I've come through it for myself and my family, but at the same time, it's just pure luck.
These guys are dangerous, they are evil, and they need to be caught as soon as possible.
Well, I'm joined now by DCI Stuart Ryan, who's heading up the investigation. Thanks for joining us, Stuart. He was an incredibly brave man, Ravi, that night, but he was also an incredibly lucky man. He could have easily been dead.
Yes, as you say, Ravi was a very lucky man. He was stabbed a number of times in the chest. He would have quite happily handed this money over to these people, but instead they attacked him and then asked him for the money.
Do you say, I mean, it seems like he was pretty much targeted specifically here.
Yes, that's correct. We believe they knew who they were waiting for and they knew where they were going to attack him, so they wouldn't be seen. So do people remember seeing these three people at this location last year on the 17th of September?
Yeah, it was Thursday, the 17th of September. That's the important date. Of course, they were wearing, I mean, they were highly visible because they were wearing high visibility jackets. You do have pretty good e-fit on one of them in particular.
Yes, that's correct. As you say, they were all three black males were wearing three-quarter length, high visibility reflective jackets. They were described between 24, 25 years of age,
right,
about 5'10", 6 feet in height.
Okay.
And the e-fit relates to one of the suspects who had a slightly darker complexion than his other two males that were with him, and he had a short goatee beard. So do people remember who these people are?
Okay, now, the money, we saw, there was so much blood around. The money was covered in blood. People would remember money that looked a bit odd, a bit stained, maybe?
Yes, that's correct. As you say, the money was blood-stained. Do people remember receiving any blood-stained notes on the 17th of September last year, or in the days after, from people fitting this description?
Okay, for now, Stuart, thanks very much. I should tell you, Ravi has now installed new security cameras at his shop. We've got to find these men before they target someone else so violently. You saw what they did. Do call us 0500 600 600, or you could call the independent charity Crime Stoppers. You can do that anonymously. That's fine too. I'm going to give you their number. It's 0800 555 111. Now, though, here's Rav with some more faces in the frame.
And I think I'll have fries with my number 5, as he goes by the name of Burger. His real name here is Shane McMahon, and he's wanted after large quantities of amphetamines and cannabis were seized in the Swaddling Coat area of Derbyshire. McMahon has links to southern Spain, but could well be hiding out in Rotterdam in the Netherlands. 6 is Aga Arzi Allen, and he's wanted for raping a girl at a party in Eastbourne last April. The victim woke up to find she'd been assaulted by at least 2 men. Allen is of Kurdish Iraqi origin and uses a number of aliases, including Heaver. He usually works in small convenience stores and could well be looking for similar jobs now. Next is 33-year-old Omar Habul, and he was found guilty of using fake checks and passports back in 2005. He was due to be deported at the end of his sentence, but instead did a runner and hasn't been seen since. Algerian Habul has links to Luton and London. And last, but by no means least, is 19-year-old Jordan Atwood. He was charged with GBH after a 19-year-old man was stabbed in the face in January last year. Atwood was due to attend court in November, but did a bunk. He has links to both Southampton and South London and uses the street name of Dreps. So come on, if you know where Atwood here or any of the others are tonight, don't wait, call us here in the studio, 0500 600 600, or you can text us on 63399, just type crime, space, and then your message. Don't forget to leave that space or your message won't get through.
Now, I have to tell you that our next case is truly sickening. Just over 18 months ago, a vulnerable 13-year-old girl was taken in broad daylight from a busy high street in the Wirral and sexually assaulted. It's been devastating for her, and worryingly, her attacker is still on the loose. So tonight, can you name him?
Just can't believe what's happened to her. She was only 13 at the time. So how dare he touch my daughter?
We're looking for a dangerous and desperate man. Someone so brazen, he'd take advantage of a young innocent girl in broad daylight.
She was out that afternoon to buy her sister a birthday present. I caused her to be independent like all my children. She's a lovely girl. She was sitting at the bus stop, just minding her own business.
Hiya, love. My name's Les. I'm from Liverpool. Where are you from?
This man started kissing her on the lips, his hands on her breasts. She didn't know what to do. She was petrified. She didn't call out for help because she was so scared.
There are two things the girl remembers about her attacker which may help to identify him. Firstly, he's wearing a gold watch. Secondly, he had a green tattoo of a frog on his hand. He was also dribbling profusely throughout the incident. There are a number of witnesses that afternoon at the bus stop who would have had a good look at this man. They may have thought he was the victim's boyfriend and dismissed the incident. However, in reality, he was a sexual predator that continued to intimidate a vulnerable young girl.
I need to go to the toilet.
Oh, I know where there's a toilet. There's one just down there. Come on, I'll take you.
Poor little thing on her own, you know, she just wanted to get away from him.
It's just down there.
He dragged her by her arm, literally down the road, took her over the hill to the pond.
The attacker told her that he had a knife and threatened to use it. Too scared to cross him, he led her to a local spot called Cadbury's Hill. What he did next was sickening.
There's a place down here for you, all right? Oh, this way. This way. Come on, it's just round here. You'll be all right. You can go there, look, it's a nice spot. Come on. Come on. Come back to mine.
Your mum shall be worried about me.
I know you're running.
Mind their own business, not doing anybody any harm. And he just came out of nowhere and done that to her. How dare he put his hands on my daughter? How dare he? I'm so angry. I'm just so angry what's happened to her.
After the attack, the man led the teenager to Morden Cross train station, where he finally let her go. At 18:01, he boarded a train to Liverpool Lime Street and vanished. This man is wanted for a serious sexual assault. That day, he thought he got away with it, but he left behind a vital clue, his DNA. All we need now is your help. Give us his name.
She's having nightmares. She's just so scared. She's dreaming of him all the time, what's happened. It's on her mind all the time. It's ruined her life. I just want him caught.
Well, we hope that she can rebuild it. I'm joined now by DI Mark Watson, who is leading the investigation. This is really awful stuff, Mark. It's really affected this young woman, not surprisingly.
Yes, she's really scared to go out on her own now. She's frightened of men. It's made her an introvert. It's really affected the whole family.
Okay. Of course we want to catch him, and the good news is you've got quite a lot to go on.
Yes, we have. I'm optimistic we'll catch him tonight. We've got a good description of the man. We've got, as you can see, we've got good CCTV. During the incident, he said his name is Les, and he's from the Liverpool area. He's described as being 5'8" to 5'10", short grey hair, about 30 to 40 years, and he's got withered skin.
Okay, now, in two really interesting and pretty distinctive things, a bit of heavy gold jewellery, might have been a watch, and also this very distinctive tattoo by the sounds of it.
Yeah, that's right. The tattoo we believe to be of a green frog, which is on the top of his left hand. It's a tattoo that's
well, we think it's a frog. I mean,
that's
it might
right.
be a frog, it might not, but it's something similar to that.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah, that's right.
And this, the watch, maybe a watch, but certainly a heavy gold piece of some sort of jewellery.
That's right, that's correct.
Now, the people didn't know what necessarily they were seeing. You know, maybe they thought it was girlfriend, boyfriend, but it seemed a bit odd. So
That's right.
witnesses are crucially important here.
That's right. It happened on June the 19th in 2008 outside the Coach and Horses public house on Pasture Road in Morton. A bus stop at that location, and we'd appeal to witnesses that we got on the 117 bus to Clatterbridge to come forward. They got on the bus about 5:20 p.m.
Very briefly, you've got DNA, so that's great.
That's right. We've got DNA, which will help us to eliminate suspects as and when we catch them.
Which is so important. If people want to give us a name, you can immediately count it out in the next few days if it's not the right name. This man,
Right.
I have to say, he needs to be caught, and he needs to be caught fast. If you can help, pick up the phone now. The number is 0500 600 600. If you've been a victim of crime, there is the victim support line. Let me give you their number, 0845 30 30 900. Now here's Rav and Matthew with some fantastic news on previous cases.
Now, we had a staggering response again last month when we appealed for information on serial killer Peter Tobin's life. You'll remember in December, Tobin was convicted of the murder of 18-year-old Dinah McNichol, ending nearly 20 years of uncertainty for her family.
A sex offender has been found guilty of raping and murdering a Polish student in Glasgow.
Peter Tobin has been charged with the murder of Vicky Hamilton, who went missing 16 years ago.
The serial killer, Peter Tobin, is convicted of another murder. 18-year-old Dinah McNichol went missing in Essex in 1991.
We now know at least 3 young women died in the most horrific circumstances at the hands of Peter Tobin. With speculation rife over how many more girls he's murdered, police need your help to establish whether Tobin is in fact one of the most prolific serial killers this country has ever seen. Incredibly, well over 350 people have been in touch as a result of our appeals, and detectives have now identified and spoken to 3 of the people they were desperate to trace. However, there are still 2 women they need to find. Bo, who knew Tobin in Hampshire in the early 90s, and Leslie, who would have been a teenager when she was in contact with him in Brighton in 1986. So please contact us. You're not in any trouble, but you could have vital information. Detectives have tonight released this new photo of Tobin from 1973, which we've put on a dedicated part of the website, together with the latest details from the anagram team, such as a list of over 100 cars Tobin used to drive and places he worked since the early 1960s. So please take a look, and if you know anything about Peter Tobin, however minor, call us here now, 0500 600 600, or you can text us on 63399. Just type crime, the space, and then your message.
Now, 2 years ago, we reconstructed the murder of Jamie Simpson, the Matalan store manager, stabbed to death in a failed robbery attempt.
Someone call the ambulance! Let me call the ambulance!
Me, my manager just got stabbed. And he's bleeding from the neck. He's dying. He's dying. I mean, he can't do nothing. The guy's dead. He's gone. He's gone. He's gone.
You're not prepared for this. Nowhere in life are you prepared for the death of your child before you.
Well, just this week, 7 men were convicted for their involvement in Jamie's murder. This man, 19-year-old Kabina Essel, was found guilty of murder, while these 3 were convicted of his manslaughter. All 4, plus a further 3 men, including the store's security guard, were found guilty of conspiracy to rob. They will all be sentenced next month. A great result.
Now, last March, over a 3-week period, members of the public made a series of very grisly discoveries. Dismembered body parts were found scattered across the country. The investigation that followed led detectives on a disturbing journey into the life of a savage killer who was no stranger to mutilating bodies. Matthew takes up the story of how the police caught the jigsaw man murderer, Stephen Marshall.
I was out in the tractor when something at the bottom of the field caught my eye. I thought, well, I'll stop and have a look. The bag felt heavy. I thought, well, I'll have a look inside. Realised that maybe I shouldn't look any further. and went back to phone the police.
What is it? An animal or something? Giving me some space.
His expression just changed.
Feels like a tongue.
The green holdall found here in a remote area of Hertfordshire contained human flesh, a butchered leg severed at the thigh. The gruesome discovery triggered a nationwide investigation, desperately searching for answers. Who had dumped it? Why was it here? And who did the body part belong to?
Extremely unusual. A leg has been found. Is that as a direct result of a murder? Or is there some other plausible explanation, such as the leg has been removed during a medical amputation and for some reason still unknown at that time, had been left where it had been left?
The grim find was examined by a series of experts who quickly ruled out medical amputation. That left only one explanation: murder.
Dismemberment of victims isn't that rare. It isn't as rare as you'd maybe expect, but dismemberment with this degree of skill is, and that is one thing that struck us very quickly when we viewed the remains.
7 days after the first grim find came the second. An arm lying by the side of the road, dumped 25 miles from where the leg was found. Then, 2 days later, a third find.
So, they found a skull. Where? Leicestershire.
What? The initial thoughts were that must be linked to this inquiry. The difficulty being then you're then looking at the geography, you're thinking, well, has somebody really driven all the way up to Leicestershire with a head in their car, and what is the link?
Right, get Leicestershire to get the lab on it, and quickly, all right?
The link was DNA, which proved that the human remains did belong to the same person. But who? Experts sought to identify the victim by examining the skull. The results were truly shocking.
The face had been removed, so all of the skin of the scalp and the face had gone. The ears, the nose, the eyes, the tongue had been removed out of the floor of the mouth. So really you were left with a skull and some small bits of muscle still attaching to it, but everything else had gone.
The latest findings were so harrowing, they couldn't be made public.
You could have just seen it, you know, scaremongering and was this a Silence of the Lambs type incident, you know, and so it was crucial that that remained within the investigative team, that it didn't go out to general public, and that we found our offender as soon as possible.
But yet another macabre find was to come.
Forensic teams have been called in after a report that more human remains have been found in Hertfordshire.
The disturbing news of a fourth discovery was quickly followed by a fifth, this time a torso disposed of in a dike. And with every find came new information on the victim's identity.
Right, run a check on every missing person in the country. And Ian, if we find the victim, we'll find the killer.
What we managed to establish from the experts was a narrower age range of which our victim was in, his ethnicity, build, shoe size, so starting to build up a clearer picture of exactly who our victim was.
And how he died. What? By examining the torso, it was clear he was killed by 2 stab wounds to the back. This brutal killing was making headlines on a daily basis. With body parts found in 2 different counties, there was massive media attention. And yet, the identity of the so-called jigsaw man remained a mystery. But that was about to change.
Sir, I think you need to take a look at this. We've just had a call about a missing person. He normally speaks to his mother at least once a day, and she hasn't heard from him in over a month.
Does he fit the description of the victim?
Oh, yes.
The missing man was Geoffrey Howe. When detectives ran checks on his background, they discovered he'd recently taken in 2 lodgers, Stephen Marshall and his girlfriend, Sarah Bush.
What have we got on Marshall?
Well, we know he's violent. He's currently on bail for assaulting his girlfriend.
Who's a girlfriend?
Miss Sarah Bush, 20 years old, used to work as a prostitute, which is where she met Marshall, and they became lovers.
When they needed a place to stay, Jeffrey was happy to help, but the relationship soon turned sour.
Look, Steve, you haven't got the rent, have you?
All right, mate, you'll get it.
But when?
I don't know.
Jeffrey had wanted to evict them, but was too frightened to cross them.
And can they be linked back to Howe's disappearance?
Well, I've done a background check on Marshall. You're not going to believe what I found.
Previously, Marshall had lived only a few hundred yards away from where the torso turned up. The killer quite clearly knew the location, and it was putting the two and two together that gave us a key breakthrough.
The case against Marshall and Bush was stacking up. On the pretext of a missing persons inquiry, detectives went to question them.
I was relatively nervous myself, to be quite honest, when I knocked on the door. Answered by Sarah Bush.
Good afternoon, sir.
Shook his hands, great big hands, sat down. He was very, very nervous, jittery, his leg was shaking. Sarah Bush was uncomfortable. And at that point, I knew that Jeffrey Howe was going to be our victim.
Mr. Stephen Marshall, I'm arresting you on suspicion of
The couple were arrested and taken for questioning. With no time to lose, detectives compared Jeffrey's dental records with teeth found in the skull. They were an exact match and proved categorically that he was the victim. But in interview, Marshall remained calm.
Are you responsible for the killing and the dismembering of your friend Jeffrey Howe? If so, why did you kill and dismember Jeffrey Howe?
With Marshall saying nothing, detectives needed answers.
And the clock was ticking. Detectives had just 72 hours to charge their prime suspects or watch them walk away free.
With the suspects still in custody, forensics began the painstaking search of Jeffrey's home.
It was only through thorough examination that we actually established that the flat was, in fact, the murder scene. It was heavily blood-stained areas underneath the carpet. That blood belonged to Jeffrey Howe.
The killer then moved to the ensuite bathroom to dismember the body. It was then that the cover-up began. But as he frantically wrapped the severed limbs, green fibres from his clothing were deposited on the duct tape. The same fibres were later recovered from a green T-shirt found in Marshall's bedroom.
As soon as the forensic work came back, I personally felt that we've got Marshall, and there's no way on God's earth that he'll get away with this.
Although forensics placed Marshall at the scene of the crime, he repeatedly denied the killing. It was only when detectives looked at Jeffrey's finances that the full extent of Marshall's murderous plot was uncovered.
The motive was money. The day after the killing, Marshall and Bush set about emptying Jeffrey's bank account.
We were talking about ordering food, or ordering clothes from his account, selling his car.
You got the money? I have. It's all there.
We were able to prove that Marshall and Bush were involved because both of their fingerprints were found on the receipt.
Days later, CCTV caught Marshall paying a forged cheque from Jeffrey's bank account into his own. When the spending spree was over, Marshall and Bush set about disposing of Jeffrey's body.
One piece of key CCTV that we established was on the day when we believe that Jeff's head was deposited in Leicestershire. The key breakthrough was that the CCTV was clear enough to identify Marshall driving his car and Bush sat beside him.
At the 11th hour, both Marshall and Bush were charged with murder.
Although united in the cover-up, Marshall and Bush would later blame each other for Jeffrey's murder. But when the case came to trial, the evidence against Marshall was compelling.
One question remained. How was it that Jeffrey's body had been dismembered with such skill? A shocking revelation was to come. Marshall went on to admit to a gruesome past in which he'd cut up 4 other corpses.
I think it just showed how strong our case had been, and that Marshall really, if you like, had thrown in the towel.
Bush was acquitted of murder, but sentenced to 3 years and 9 months for perverting the course of justice. Marshall changed his plea to guilty and was sentenced to life. He'll serve a minimum of 36 years.
It really is justice, not just for Jeffrey Howe's family, but for the British public, really, to know that this nasty criminal is behind bars and he'll be an old man before he's got any chance of coming back into society.
Horrendous. And that remarkable admission coming at the end.
Yeah, it was a dramatic moment towards the end of the trial that took everyone by surprise. Marshall admitted through his barrister to dismembering 4 other people in the 1990s. An unidentified witness told the court that during this time, Marshall worked for a notorious North London gang. He was what the mob like to call a cleaner, the man who gets rid of evidence after crimes. Now, the bodies were apparently brought to him after gangland hits, and he would then cut them up. Now, obviously, police now are trying to find out as much about these crimes as they can, and Marshall is central to that.
There's no surprise at all that when police started to look into his character, there was sort of violence just permeated his life, really.
Yeah, he was a frightening character who could flick like a switch to using extreme violence in all his personal relationships with people he came into conflict with people that just got in his way, and I think that's what happened with Geoffrey Howe, a rather gentle character. But Marshall decided that he could almost take over his life if he killed him. He could live in his flat, he could claim his benefits, he could steal his money. I mean, he wasn't rich, he had about 5 grand in his account, but for Marshall, it was enough to murder.
Police obviously pretty satisfied with this result. It's a good one, it's a big one.
Yeah, satisfied, because it was a difficult investigation, almost a back-to-front investigation. Normally with murders, you know right from the start who the victim is. Here, Marshall and Bush were in custody before the victim was identified, so real pressure on the police. But the police cracked this in 5 weeks, so pretty smart work.
Yeah, smart work. Now, here's Rav with a quick roundup of what's been happening on the phones.
That's some good stuff already on Claudia Lawrence, the missing chef from York. 1 year on, still lots of calls coming in. Many are about the type of car that police are appealing for information on, but also further witnesses have now come forward with information about that couple on Melrose Gate. Let's hope that comes to something. Then we've also had a really great response on the Angel Meadows murder, the skeleton of the female in Manchester. Lots of calls with information on the dress, which is really helping police narrow down that timeline, which is great. And also a possible name for the victim. More in the update show to follow.
Right, that's all for now. Details on all of tonight's cases are online. It is, of course, bbc.co.uk/Crimewatch. You can log on now. We're going to give you a live update if you do that on what's been happening here on the phones. It seems to me that we've had some great calls and that it's been a busy night. The lines will be open until midnight tonight and from 7:30 in the morning. Our next programme is on Monday, the 29th of March. Our update show's not on BBC One tonight, but it will be available on our website from midnight. If you can help but you haven't called yet, please do it now. It could all be down to you. Thanks for watching. Good night.